Hello and welcome to the Business Aviation Collective podcast, sponsored by LD Aviation. I'm your host, Lindsay, and today we get a chance to talk to Steve Bruneau. He is the Vice President with Aviation at Polaris Aero. He's also the Secretary of NBAA Safety Committee, and he's the co-chair for the AIA Safety Committee. Steve and I have known each other and worked together for multiple years, and I am so excited to talk to him and get more in-depth information and background on how he even got into aviation. So welcome, Steve.
Hey, thank you, Lindsay. So happy to be here and so nice to see you. I always enjoy catching up.
Likewise. So I start off my conversations most often this way is, how did you get into aviation? How did you get to where you are now?
Well, it's actually a quite long story. Started out, I'm an aerospace engineer by training. So I got my master's degree in aerospace from Penn State. And at the time I came out, there weren't a lot of aerospace jobs. I was an engineer. So I wanted to do like design work and so forth. And I ended up with a small valve company in northern New Jersey doing rocket propulsion, satellite propulsion, Navy weapon systems, things like that. So I was a full-blown engineer doing design and simulation and things of that nature. And then that led me to get into sales and such in business development for that same company. So I came up really through the OEM side of the business. I thought I'd be an astronaut way back when I was younger, but then I got married and everything kind of changes. So astronaut was not the path for me. But anyway, I really loved what I did at that company and got into management really early. And then in doing that, I got into computers because the systems we were using to design the valves and such were pretty cool. And that led me to cloud computing startup company.
Okay.
And this is going to go a little bit awry, but I wasn't in aviation specifically. The cloud computing was all about doing joint design collaboration over the internet way back in the day before it was the thing. Like now you got Google Cloud and such. Way predating that. But we had clients like BMW, Oracle Racing, American Standard Bath and Kitchen Faucets. We had the Navy's LCAC hovercraft program, things like that. And design teams from around the world would design their products using our software.
Okay.
So lo and behold, we ended up selling that company. That led me to Pulsar Informatics, where I wanted to develop their products around fatigue risk management. Again, cloud-based computing. And then when I decided that I was leaving Pulsar, I joined up with Polaris and been doing safety management ever since. So I've always been around sort of design management, change management, design control, business process type stuff. But it's been in many different industries, but it did start in aerospace. And in the last 10, 15 years, it's been specifically in aviation. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's how I got here.
No, that's great. Okay, so I have some more questions about Polaris, but I also have questions about Pulsar. Because I've used Pulsar, really cool program and deals with, like you said, fatigue. So can you tell us a little bit more about that one?
Pulsar, yeah. So Pulsar is great technology. Daniel Mollicone is sort of the chief scientist behind that. And really what it's about is giving operators advanced management visibility into where high fatigue is. And when you think about pilots, let's use aviation specifically, when you think about pilots, they're A-type personality, right? They're not going to want to say, no, I can't do something. They're going to want to fly that flight. So as an organization, you have to appreciate the fact that fatigue is a we problem. It's not just the pilot responsibility, right? And the things that lead to fatigue are, of course, a person's choice, right? If a person doesn't get enough sleep and they don't take care of themselves sleep hygiene-wise, that's a problem. But organizationally, if you schedule, crappy flights or not enough crew or, you don't have augmented crew situations, then the company could help out a little bit too by having a little bit better management of their schedules. So Pulsar's technology is a way to apply science so that organizations and pilots can kind of see the big picture of what's causing fatigue and what you can do about it. And like anything else, if you have advanced knowledge of a potential problem, then you can start to work on mitigations.
I love that. And that's something I think schedulers and dispatchers can really be a part of as well, because for that program, it allows you to put in your schedule, if I'm not mistaken. I've used it a couple of places, and then it kind of shoots out like a graph. So it's a nice tool for us as schedulers to use.
The only thing about fatigue that you really have to think about is if you find out you have a fatigue problem an hour before takeoff, you don't have a lot of options at your disposal. But if you find out there's a potential fatigue problem a week ahead of time, a couple of weeks ahead of time, and everyone's dialed into that, then the crew will take their personal responsibility of making sure they're rested, not staying up late into the night watching Netflix reruns, right? They're going to get their sleep. And again, the operation can do its part to, make sure there's sleep facilities nearby perhaps, or get them a day room, or maybe augment the crew or whatever to help from their end. So again, fatigue's one that the earlier you find out the problem, the more opportunity you have to apply different options.
Definitely. And as schedulers, the more we can do in advance, the less hair on fire day of, the better. We hate those last minute changes or try fires, I guess.
Nobody likes firefighting, but that's why the Polaris suite is so cool too, because Polaris looks at all things flight hazard related, not just fatigue. So when you find out that an airport's closed or the runway's closed, that your airplane needs the length or the width to land at, or weather just changed. These are things that the more you know about before takeoff, the more the organization can do its thing, if you will, to mitigate the risk.
Yeah, so I love that because Polaris, like you said, it's not just one section of it. It is like all the sections pulled together, and you're using technology to do it quickly. Like it doesn't take but a few seconds.
Exactly. And that's what I love about the Polaris team. That's Chris and Trent, the founders, the Polaris technology focus is that it really is using technology differently than what you are traditionally used to really change the game. It's not just about saying, did you do a pre-flight risk assessment? Checking a box somewhere. It is genuinely applying technology in a very unique way to really simplify it and make it more worthwhile. And I think that's what's so exciting about it, right? It's different, but it's better.
I love it. And the fact that you guys color code a lot of the stuff too, and then, highlight the closures. And I love that.
Got to keep it simple.
So how did you come to join Polaris?
Oh, so that's a great story. So when I was at Pulsar, a big push for what I was trying to do there was integrate that fatigue risk management capability into scheduling systems. Again, I think that's when you and I first met. And in doing that, of course, I came across, the Polaris guys and integrated the fatigue meter technology into Flight Risk, which is one of the VOCUS apps. So over the years, I would see Chris and Trent at NBAA, base. I would see them at schedulers and dispatchers. And we just had a really good rapport, just personal rapport. And we'd get together, usually each of those times for a bourbon here and there. And we'd sit around, again, having a drink and then just enjoying each other's company and catching up with what's going on. And then when I decided I was going to be leaving Pulsar, I was at, I forget which event it was, but I was having a bourbon with Chris and Trent. And I just happened to say, well, hey, I'm thinking about leaving Pulsar. If you know of any openings out there, please keep me in mind. And they kind of looked at each other and they looked back at me and they said, would you consider joining Polaris? And I said, oh yeah, actually that's pretty interesting. So that was it. We got together shortly thereafter, had a discussion, and next thing you know, I was part of the team. So it was pretty cool.
I love that because that's just another example of how networking works. And I think that's how a lot of aviation moves. You get to know somebody, they help you. Maybe they decide you're a perfect fit for a certain job they know of. Yeah,
exactly. And as big as our industry is, it's also very small.
Very small
from a networking standpoint, and the old adage, everyone's 3 people removed from Kevin Bacon. You can almost draw an analog and say everyone's 3 people removed from Lindsay.
There we go. That's right. That's cool. Well, I love that. Just the more people I get to know, the better my network is, and the more fun people I get a chance to meet. So
yeah, fun, intelligent, experienced. It's really a pretty amazing community.
Right, and different perspective and different tools that everybody knows about. Yeah, that's awesome. So I wanted to mention something. We kind of talked about this before too. Every time I see you, Steve, you are like happy and you're excited and you're like full steam ahead and your energy is exciting and happy. How do you maintain that over and over?
I guess I'm excited about what we do as a company, and we're having success, with our team. We have a great team. We have great technology. We're solving real problems. And our customers really resonate with what we're doing, and they talk about it. They talk about it with us. They talk about it with other colleagues or cohorts at their airports and within their community. it's just great to have that kind of, I'll call it buzz, but that it almost infers it's like marketing buzz. That's not what it's about. It's like genuinely people are solving problems with our technology. So it's easy to get excited about being involved with that. And again, we have a great team. I mean, our team, I hate to say it, it's almost like sitting around playing foosball with a bunch of buddies, but we're all remote, right? We're effectively all just having a great time working with one another. We all respect one another. We're all pushing hard to make progress. It's easy to work in that environment. It just is. So when you get good people around you, it's infectious. And I think when I work with people like yourself and other partners we have, that's infectious because everyone's driving for the same thing, to be the best they can be and to do great things and make a difference, which I think is pretty slick.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. So these days you have been doing a little bit different in your role. You said you backed a little bit away from the sales and now you're doing, we see you at all the events.
Yeah.
How do you like that?
Well, it's funny. We have a little tagline we started to use, and that is Polaris is everywhere. And that's kind of by design because, again, we do cover the entire country up into Canada. Now we're in Latin America as well. I am doing less direct sales because my first goal when I got to Polaris was to build a sales team. And we've been able to do that. And we have a great group of folks on our sales team that are pretty self-sufficient these days. They just, I send them off in a direction and off they go doing their thing. So I'm able to focus now more on stuff I love, which is, again, the process, people, and the technology all coming together. So when I talk about solving safety problems with our technology, I really enjoy that. I also enjoy finding partnerships that further expand the ecosystem of what we're doing so it's more applicable to more flight departments across scheduling vendors, flight planning vendors, FOCUS, FDM, things like that. It's just fun. So while I am involved in sales still, I do less of that and I do more of the other stuff, which is just as exciting and fun to grow a business by.
Yeah, definitely. That is really fun. And the fact that you get to kind of see the company evolve based on what you've done. Not only you, I know you have a whole team, but you can, I'm assuming you can see direct changes from the things you've done.
Absolutely. I think my son is just starting his career and I've told him that I've always worked with smaller companies and I've liked working with smaller companies because you get to be chief cook and bottle washer all at the same time. Like I love to get my hands dirty building a flyer for a Dolph event, right alongside doing some strategy about our pricing, price list or whatever, or coming up with a marketing campaign. So everything from strategy to tactical. I mean, sometimes I'll have days where I do everything in one day that bridges that gamut. And that just keeps it fresh. It keeps it stimulating mentally. And sometimes you just want a day where you want to grind on some tactical thing and, just kind of put your brain on hold for a little bit and just go. But then other times you need to step back and go into a rubber room and just, think big picture. So I don't know. I guess I love doing all that stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that's good for people who are maybe coming into the industry too. Like, what do you really like to do? Do you want to do, a similar thing most days, or do you want to be able to go back and forth between big picture and very detailed?
Yeah. And it's sometimes harder. Certainly when you first start your career, you're probably not going to be exposed to strategy type work, but I think you get to the point where you can appreciate strategy by just paying attention to what it is your job does in the bigger scheme of the business. And when you can appreciate all of the bigger business considerations that are going on and you see how what you do fits into that machine, then you start to think outside your own box a little bit. It's not just, you want to do your job really well, but when you can appreciate how you doing your job really well helps the next person do their job very well, or helps the business achieve what they're trying to do, then you just start to see like this chain, and then you can start to think more strategically because you're looking outside your little world. So I think the more you take that serious approach, you put yourself in a position to grow in a management realm, you put yourself to be more thought of as a strategic thinker, and the next thing you know, you're doing it. So it's,
I love that. And I like that's coming from the perspective of you internally are like, I would like to learn this and I want to show my worth and I want to go, do more. What if you were in the management level and you were looking down at your team and you wanted to inspire more people to do that? Any suggestions?
Yeah. You ever watch the show Undercover Boss?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, take a day, go get on the line, go do a job on the line with your folks and get your hands dirty. Yeah. How can you manage if you can't appreciate what it's like at every job within the organization, then how can you really give some direction or get people motivated? So if you can understand, and that doesn't mean you're going to be a pro at every one of the line jobs. Like, I'm not a pilot, but I can appreciate what a pilot deals with, right? So again, if I take the time to listen to pilots, ask questions, observe what they're dealing with, and absorb it and understand it, then I can talk to it. I certainly won't become a pilot that way, but I can at least talk at a level where people appreciate that I'm looking at them in a certain way. And then I can get them to think, more strategically. Hey, did you ever consider that if you did it like this, it could have a broader impact on your business? Oh, no, I hadn't thought of that. So, it starts with listening and then understanding. And then once you understand where people are coming from, then you can help, steer them and give them, greater awareness to other things.
Yeah, great suggestion. So you've given us great suggestions, both the employee and the management level. Thank you. It's awesome. Let's switch a little bit over to the NBAA Safety Committee. How long have you been with them?
A little over 2 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a great experience. Again, great group of safety professionals, from all areas of safety, all levels of experience, all sizes of organizations. It's been just a really, really good experience all the way around. And I feel like I'm, giving back. It's you don't get paid for that kind of thing. You just kind of do it. But it's fun. It's just another thing to get involved, to network.
Yeah.
It's just great.
How big is the safety committee? Are there a lot of people on that?
Yep. Almost 80 people now. I think there's 76 to be exact. We cover about 12 different safety, we call them top safety focus areas. And everything from single pilot flight operation considerations to like workforce challenges to runway safety to SMS. And for each one of those topics, there's a work group leader. There's a handful of safety professionals on their work group. And each year they put together, what do they want to achieve for the year? And that might be things like, we're going to do a webinar base, or we're going to write a white paper that we're going to put on the website at NBAA, or things like that. And it's fun. We're trying to do a better job of what's the word? Coming up with more digestible, smaller deliverables each year.
Okay. Yeah.
Rather than chartering each work group with, hey, here's an elephant, go eat it in one bite.
Sure.
It's just harder to do. So we're trying to come up with a better way to kind of get more progress in a smaller way.
That's awesome. You guys host some events as well, right?
We do. Well, specifically the safety committee, we're involved in a lot. We like to think of ourselves as kind of like a pool of resources that can be drawn on for any number of things. The specific thing that we do sponsor, if you will, the National Safety Forum and the Single Pilot Safety Stand Down are two things that are done at base, the week of base. So those are really our safety, I call them forums. But we also offer people in our committee to things like the Bombardier Safety Stand Down, the NBAA and other organizations, regional as well, will reach out to us. Hey, do you have an expert on such and such? And we can find somebody in our committee who can talk to whatever such and such wants to talk about. So think of it that way. It's a pool of safety resources that could be drawn on by the NBAA and or anyone else who needs some safety matter to be addressed.
That's great. And I haven't been to a safety day recently. I should probably go, but I'm pretty positive that the Georgia Business Aviation Association has a full-on safety day.
They do. Yeah, I'm involved in those as well. I presented at them several times. GBAA is a great organization. That's really cool too, because I think like things like GBAA, the Trenton Airport has a great safety day. I know Chicago has a great safety day. Pacific Northwest has a great safety day.
That's right.
Southern Cal has a great safety day that they're resurrecting. I know it was quiet for a little bit with COVID, but those little regional pockets are really cool and different, I think, than the big shows, because they tend to be more intimate with the people who attend, because people in those smaller regions see each other more often.
Sure.
So there's more familiarity, there's more comfort, and there's a lot more information sharing that happens at the smaller shows, which to me, I really get jazzed up about that, because information sharing, nobody should be competing on safety. No. So if somebody learns a lesson and they can share it with somebody else so that they don't step in the same hole, to me, that's great. And I think those smaller regional forums like GBAA that you mentioned are great for that.
They are. I think you pointed out something too about the sharing. And I feel like when I first kind of came into aviation, especially in the business aviation, everything was really closed and people didn't want to share. They didn't want to share proprietary information, which fine, I get that, but they weren't sharing processes. They weren't sharing just anything. And I've seen that change over the last 20-some years to where we are starting to collaborate way more than we ever used to.
Yeah.
And we're seeing great success with that too.
I think that's a couple things. Number one, I think everyone's realizing that as much as we all think we're a unique company, flight department wise, we're really not all that unique, right? We kind of do the same sort of things. Yes, there's some unique aspect, but for the most part, we're all pretty similar.
Yeah.
And I think what's also unique about aviation is there's a fair amount of turnover. There's turnover in and out of business aviation. There's turnover within business aviation. So I think inevitably, you're spreading the knowledge by people moving around, by consolidation of flight departments, by breakup sometimes of flight departments and people moving around, people going from 91 to 135 and back. So I think inherently there's a pollinization that I think breeds more of that sharing sort of philosophy. And then I just think that the people in aviation are just cool. And I think they want to share. I think people genuinely enjoy talking about what they do. They enjoy talking about where they're having successes. And now I think more than ever, people are saying, you know what, I haven't had much success at this. Any ideas? And they're willing to open up about an area that they could probably use some help in. That I think is a little bit more, unique lately than sharing the good stuff. It's easy to share the good stuff.
Right.
But yeah.
Sharing the where I'm having trouble.
Exactly.
Might have tripped a little bit. Yeah.
Hey, for example, the fatigue we're talking about earlier, hey, like, what are you guys doing about managing fatigue? Like we're really starting to struggle in our flight department, well, let me put you in touch with so-and-so and they could talk, or let me connect you with Pulsar, or let's have the Polaris guys show you how the fatigue add-on works with flight risk. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. I really think that.
Oh, totally. Yep. And, like for your product, for Polaris's product, the risk assessment, that's something that anytime we go into a new client, we're like, hey, you really should look into doing this because it makes your whole department safer. And on our side, we love using it and it's easy and it makes what we do look, I don't know if I want to say better, but when we're able to come up with an issue and fix it before the day of flight, it's awesome. Huge.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. It's there's so much information in aviation on any given flight that it's almost unrealistic to think that anybody involved in that flight can remember all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a Herculean amount of information. So when you have technology used in a way like we have it to just help sort of separate the wheat from the chaff and say, focus here. And when you can then focus here, then you're not cluttered with all this busy work. You're really focusing on the stuff that's going to be a successful flight. And I think that is just, it's a game changer. It really does change the way things get done.
Yep. Totally agree. Oh, let me switch back to the other one where you're the other program that you're with or organization that you're with, that you are the co-chair, and that is the Aviation Insurance Association, which I have to say, I don't know much about at all. What do you guys do there?
Yeah, so the Aviation Insurance Association is where the insurance industry gets together in, just like NBAA gets together by flight departments to just, kind of share best practice, talk about trends, things of that nature. And our job on the safety committee for AIA is to educate the insurance on safety issues, safety technology, safety trends, and ways in which the insurance can spread the word, if you will, to their policyholders, and just be apprised of what's going up, down the road, so they can prepare as an insurer for the things that are changing. Right.
Okay.
So it's kind of a nice bridge because it's the connection between the operator and the insurance, but still safety related. So for me, it's fun because I get to talk about safety in a different form.
Very cool. Interesting. Yeah. I guess I never even thought about it existing, but it makes sense.
Well, it's funny because one of the things that I've been doing for quite some time at Pulsar and more recently with Polaris is our products are involved in some of the insurance company safety programs.
Okay.
Like USAIG Performance Vector and STAR has their preferred vendor program and so forth. And oftentimes I'll be talking to a flight department and I'll say, hey, do you know who your insurer is? And they kind of look at me funny, like, well, what does that matter? And I'm like, do you know if there's a safety rider in your insurance policy that provides some level of help, to do things safety related.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, I had no idea. And lo and behold, yeah, I use USAIG. Oh, well, they've got Performance Vector. You should contact them and you can find out how they can help you. And
Nice.
it's like this huge light bulb goes off that they didn't know about. And it's like,
Mhm.
wow, that's kind of crazy. And I would contend that the same is in reverse. There's a lot of people in the insurance industry that don't realize there's a lot of safety solutions out there.
Sure.
So it's nice to kind of, do it both ways.
Get that information back and forth. Totally true. And I do see that a lot when we go into flight departments. They're not using all of what they have. So maybe they didn't know about that insurance piece of it. Maybe they didn't know that a product that they have does two other things and you're already paying for it. They're just not
Yeah.
using it.
That's what I really love. Yes, what gets me jazzed up. I love giving people a solution.
Mhm.
I love when you can help somebody out and they're like, wow, this is awesome. That's a game changer for me.
Yeah.
Man, there's no better feeling in the world than that. And the two examples you just gave are great. Like I have product right now that I'm underutilizing.
Mhm.
And the minute I can teach you how to use it differently, it saves you 50% of the time, or it enables you to do something you couldn't otherwise do. I mean, just seeing the look on their face and the fact that they can now go to their company and say, look what I've been able to do for the business.
Mhm.
How can I not get excited about helping to provide that?
Very true.
That's cool. So
That is very awesome. Wow, that's cool. So, Steve, I want to switch a little bit to more on the personal side. And I'm curious, are there any books you're reading or podcasts that you like listening that you might suggest to our listeners?
I don't have a handful of specific things that I reference. I would say that I do things in two ways. One, I do read a lot of different sources. I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm always reading different things on the internet from different forums. I'm obviously involved in a lot of committees that I listen to. And so I like to think I get a smattering of information from a lot of different sources. So I think it's more of a shotgun approach than a rifle approach. I also think that it is kind of the way I was brought up in my family. I think I'm a huge observer. And I really pay attention to the details of what I see with my own eyes. So when I see companies doing great things, I don't just sort of acknowledge it and move on. I actually stop and pause and think about why they're being successful.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I see things that aren't working, I don't just write it off and say, yeah, that's not working and move on. I think about why is that not working? So I feel like I observe a lot, digest a lot, and then I morph that into like, what can I learn from that? And then apply it. So it's almost, I hate to say I'm self-reading my own observations, but I think to a great extent, that's kind of what I do a lot of.
Sure.
And I learn from other people. I mean, again, networking is so huge. The first thing I did when I got to Polaris, I went to Chris Connor and I said, hey, Chris, tell me who your top 5 clients are. And I got in my car, and I think in one case I got an airplane, I flew, and I spent a day with each of those 5 clients. And I just said, tell me what you like about Polaris. Tell me how it's going. Tell me what you don't like. Just give me a dump of what your thoughts are.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just listen and digest it and absorb it all in. And man, it's just, that's how you learn to me. I learn by doing.
Yeah. What a great way to start a company. Yeah. Just go and visit with the people who are actually using that product.
Yep.
Great way. So for schedulers, maybe I'll kind of switch back more for a working type of question. Schedulers and dispatchers, how can we either ask for more help in the risk assessment section or ask to be more involved how can we just get more involved in general in safety?
Well, I think schedulers and dispatchers are probably the most underutilized safety resource we have, quite frankly, because you guys are involved in every flight and you're hearing and listening about everything going on in every flight and participating in every flight. So, I've found schedulers and dispatchers have an unbelievable memory for things. And I think by being, I'll call you Grand Central Station for all things flight related, you're in a great position to recollect problems that happened on past flights, issues with different airports, things you've heard, in the industries, for the things that you guys learn. So I think that's why one of the things in our tool with flight risk specifically, originally it was for pilots, but we found that it's become more and more of an asset and a resource for dispatch and scheduling. Because like I said earlier, you can't remember everything, but you can program flight risk to put in a little bit of tidbit of wisdom about Aspen Or when flying in these kinds of conditions, remember to do something. And you don't have to be a pilot to listen, remember a certain lesson learned, and then put it in a tool like flight risk so that it can be brought to the surface 3 years from now, the next time you go to Aspen or whatever. So, I mean, I think from a scheduling and dispatch, and what we like to say is flight risk enables the pre-flight risk assessment process to be a team sport. And it starts with scheduling. If scheduling can get exposed to hazard-related information from the very beginning of putting that flight together, schedulers are in an ideal place to start mitigating. Now, they're not going to mitigate flight stuff, right? They're not a pilot. But they can mitigate things like, hey, there's a storm front we should prepare for. Or, hey, turns out the NOTAM just closed that airport. Or, hey, when we go to this airport, we got to remember to bring our own chocks because they don't have chocks big enough for our aircraft. All these either big things or little things, I think, are things that schedulers and dispatchers can really get a leg up on and become a tremendous asset to the flight department in a safety sense. Not that you're already a great asset, but in a safety specific sense.
No, that it's true. And I mean, I think scheduler dispatchers, you're right, are assets in general, but sometimes we're looking for additional things to do so that we can show that we are more of an asset, or we want to just get involved more in the flight department in general. And I just think safety is one of those really fun and I want to say easy, but definitely a needed spot in every flight department.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I think about some of the safety sharing that's in our technology, one of the things we have is called risk ratings, and that allows pilots to share safety tips flying in and out of different airports. And when I think about almost every scheduler and dispatcher I've ever engaged with, you guys keep copious notes about airports and things about, you know, flying to different parts of the world. In essence, you're already doing what we're trying to promote pilots to do more of. So in essence, if schedulers and dispatchers could engage with pilots in a way that they could listen and hear little safety tidbits, then they could be in a great position to copy down that extra little note. So the next time a flight of similar hazard conditions exists, you can resurrect. Oh, did you remember that John had a problem with such and such the last time we had that happen? Oh, wow. Thanks for reminding me, Lindsay. That's great. So, and again, our technology can help you do that, but our technology just by turning it on isn't going to solve world hunger. People still have to use it, right? People still have to add information into it. So, but I think schedulers and dispatchers already do the things that we're trying to get pilots to do more of. And I think that would be huge.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And just a fun way to get more into, I wish more schedulers would get into this. I am able to see quite a few different flight departments and how everybody is working and everything. And sometimes I see the schedulers like, oh, it's not my problem. I'm not going to deal with that. And I'm talking about the safety part of it. And I would say that using the risk assessment, and I'm not trying to just make this a big sales call, but using the risk assessment that you guys have there at Polaris allows us to elevate what we do, allows us to have more of a seat at the table with the management group. And it's easy. So I hope that anybody that might be listening takes the time to really look at it with fresh eyes and be like, yeah, I can do that. I can add that to my daily, I guess, list of things to do. And I just really would wish more schedulers would get into safety.
I think the point you made a minute ago about, oh, that's not my job. And again, not everyone thinks that way. I realize that, but I think generally people think of safety as an extra thing to do, and I think that's where I joined Polaris because I think our technologies really just make safety part of what you do instead of something extra you do. And I think if more people start to appreciate safety really is something that we're all responsible for, then no matter who you are on the flight line, you know that you're just as valuable a member of the safe flight as the next person. Yes, you're not flying the airplane, but you could just as well observe something or take some action that could lead to reducing risk or avoiding risk. It might be a little thing, but a little thing sometimes can produce a bad outcome. And I think, if people start to say, you know what, I feel just as empowered for the safety of that flight as the pilot, again, you got to start somewhere. And I think the mindset is where it has to start.
Mindset. Yep. Totally agree. Yep. So if you were a new person to aviation coming into the industry Anything that you would suggest on how to succeed?
Well, I mean, I think networking, we hit on that earlier.
Yep.
I think pay attention to the details, know what your job is, but more importantly, understand how your job fits in the bigger picture of your operation, right? If you're a line service tech marshaling planes in and out, you got to appreciate that, it's these clients who are using your FBO that you're really making, you're the front line of the FBO.
Yeah.
So what you do and how you do it is the reputation of your FBO. Same thing if you're in the flight department, right? You are what becomes the reputation of the flight department. So you have to take your job seriously to become an expert at what you do, but you should always look around to appreciate the other parts of how what you do impacts the business. And I think by doing that, I think you will find, and I think this is the way my career evolved, is by paying attention outside. Well, number one, taking care of your job is number one, but number two, looking outside just what you do, you suddenly find that, hey, I'm kind of more interested in that. And then my next role might be over there. And then when you get over there and you pay attention, you might say, hey, I really am interested in that. And then your career will kind of meander into the things that you truly love. I started out as a deep dive design engineer doing computer simulation. And then that evolved into business development, and then that evolved into sales. And then I went to a cloud computing company doing implementation. And then I ended up doing fatigue risk management. Now, I love that. It keeps my career fresh. It keeps my learning fresh. It keeps my ideation open. And I'm excited. So I guess that, you asked why I was excited. I guess that's why.
Yeah, you get to do all those things. I think that's a great point. You'll meander in and just follow the passion, follow the interest that comes to you. And there's somebody told me over 800 and some aviation jobs. So
I remember my first time going to NBAA base, I was blown away. I mean, I was standing there and I'm like, you look down the booths and, there's like an engine manufacturer, a fatigue service, an SMS, a leather manufacturer, scheduling companies. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, FBOs and fuel providers. And you're like, oh my Lord, I had no idea it was this diverse,
I feel the same way. I remember going to my first S&D and I was working with an FBO and you're like, I had no idea all these companies were out there.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the challenges, we hear a lot about, the workforce challenges and recruiting younger people into business aviation specifically. I think you do kind of grow up thinking of aviation as Delta, United, American in the airports. And you just, you don't really know about business aviation. But man, if we could just, route every high school kid through base,
right?
If we change the paradigm.
That would be a great idea. That's a great idea. No, I totally agree.
Logistically pretty expensive, but.
Yes, that would be. But yeah, I brought my daughter to S&D. Yes. And that really did change her perspective on things. So this year I'm hoping to bring my older daughter. Again, I just want her, she may not end up in aviation, but I just really want them to see all the different opportunities that there are out there.
Well, even if you don't end up in aviation, I mean, marketing roles, sales roles, design roles, computer roles, customer support roles. I mean, everything I just mentioned, you can do in any industry. So if you cut your teeth in any of those industries with those disciplines, you may end up in aviation to apply the discipline, or you might start in aviation and apply that discipline somewhere else down the road.
Very true.
I've been fortunate to be in DOD. I've been in military. I've been in rockets and space station. I've been in trucking. It's just fun. But yeah, at the same time, it's all very similar.
Sure.
So as unique as it is just as much the same as it is in many ways.
Lots of opportunities for sure.
Yep.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for your time today. It's really been wonderful talking to you. And I really want to hit you up maybe in a couple of months to do another presentation on how your software works, because I think that was great when we did it a couple of years ago. So
love to do it anytime. It's always a pleasure, Lindsay. Thank you so much.
Oh, Steve, before I go, if somebody wanted to ask you some questions or maybe had more information they wanted, how would they find you?
A couple of ways. You can hit me up on LinkedIn, Steve Bruneau, Bruneau, and or send me a direct email to my work email address, steve@polarisaero.com.
Wonderful. Sounds good. Thank you again very much, Steve, and have a great holiday.
Same to you, Lindsay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes and check out our website for up-and-coming podcasts. This has been a production of the Business Aviation Collective, sponsored by LD Aviation.